I would unite with anybody to do right, and with nobody to do wrong, end of quote. In this particular instance, and on this particular occasion, I stand with UNC because I believe it is doing the right and noble thing. I stand with UNC because I believe it is doing the right and noble thing, and feel compelled to speak out against the brutal slayings of so many young black men every day, and the unease that so many citizens feel about what is taking place in our society. We, the members of the general public, must intervene to stop this carnage. Perhaps, like Gandhi, we could say, great is the truth, and it shall prevail.
Professor Selwyn Cudjoe.
The Honorable Kamla Besessa, leader of the UNC, distinguished members of the UNC, and they say, Makaram, right? They say all that kind of thing. But I'm still trying. But before I do it, I want to thank Ms. John and all the others who have invited me. And I want to recognize, oh God, when you could pull out Louis Lee Singh, you're nice, you know. And my other dear friend, Brian Moore, he's frightened now because he's a big piano man, he's afraid. I would be very honored if the leader of the opposition would come forward and just let me present her with a book in terms of... I know what happened. Let me get it straight. I dedicate this book to Jerome and Jolene and Foster Cummins. But I have a next book called Indian Time I Come, which I did in 2010, dedicated to who? Kamla Prasad Besessa and the East Indian struggle. On the state of crime in our country at this forum, for the simple reason that if the intensity of criminal activity continues, both at the hands of bandits with a gun or bandits who were, or social bandits with pens and computers, at the rate they're going, our situation or the barbarity of the society would decline. Such a situation would make our society unlivable for both the bandit, the white-collar criminal, and the ordinary man and woman. As a citizen of this country, I felt it imperative to accept this invitation and give me a little 2 cents for what I had to say. You may like it, or you may not like it, but honesty impels. I've called my position this evening a quest for truth, and I shall try to outline what I want to do. I said, just again, I also wish to thank the leader of the opposition for really continuing these important conversations. They are conversations in terms of Socratic dialogue. You only arrive at true discourse and discussion, not by shouting and calling people names. If it's something the nation must engage in this time, are really the future of our society. It is more important than constitutional reform. What faces each citizen every day is the question of crime and being subjected to crime at all and every level. And it seems to me that if you want to even talk about constitutional reform, you don't put, for example, Madam Leader, a conveyancer to lead. You know what the conveyancer is? And a conveyancer is a man who deals with real estate. When there's so many distinguished constitutional lawyers in this country at this time, including Douglas Mendes, Jose Fayad, and even John Jeremy. So the point is, you start on the wrong foot, and what happens? You end up on the wrong foot. And it's this Vicky-Vi approach to discussion and discourse that has led us to where we are today. My hope and expectation is that eventually a UNC-generated document on these discussions can be shared with every member of the community in the near future. In this way, it will help us to understand where we are, how we got here, and the way forward. The slave talking. 125 years ago, I repeat, he says, security of the person and property being the first condition of social progress, the principal function of every civilized government, and Jerome talked about civility, etc., are to protect the Commonwealth against external aggression and to secure to every individual the fruits of their industry and to live in the place in security. He understood 125 years. Why can't we understand now? Proudhon Davis made that statement in 1899, almost 125 years ago. However, the question of protecting the well-being of every citizen was taken up again by Dr. Eric Williams, the father of our nation, on November 27, 1970, in what is called the Chaguaramas Declaration, Perspectives on a New Society, which he delivered shortly after Black Power. You may not want to remember it, but Black Power was tore us up because we were not acting fairly among all our citizens. And this is what Eric Williams said, the Chaguaramas Declaration. I quote, he says, first of all, he dismissed, I think John was going there, the adoption of laissez-faire capitalism, which he called liberal democracy, liberal capitalism, and the ideal of Marxism as guides to our social development. And he has said it, and I shall quote what he said in 1970, quickly after the Black Power Revolution. He says, we must devise, and that's why this is so important, talking with one another in a mutual way to solve our problem, whether you're PNM or UNC or wherever. As Jerome says, this is a national problem. Not a PNM problem, not a UNC problem, but this is a national problem. This is what Eric Williams says. He says, we must devise a system which gives a central place to the idea of the sovereignty of people. Could I read that again, boy? He says we must devise a system which gives a central place to the idea of the sovereignty of people, not the sovereignty of government, you know. The sovereignty of people. He goes on, the people must participate actively in decision-making in political and economic matters. They must shape their own culture, wielding all the separate strands that have been imported into our society into one composite national culture. In other words, this is Eric Williams, in other words, they must, after more than 400 years of being acted upon, they must now act for themselves. From being passive objects of history, we must now become active agents in our society. They must shape their own future. In other words, nobody could shape your future for yourself. We at the grassroots levels must say what must be done. No government could do it. And that's why what is being done here is so very important. But we must wish Kamla well and expect her to do the best for all of us in the nation. Whether we are PNM, COP, PP, we should not want her to fail, because if she fails, it means all of us fail. And in point of fact, that was written in 210. And in this sense, in this anti-crime conversation, we should all wish Kamla and the UNC well, because if you succeed, all of we succeed. It's a no-win population. Prime function of any nation is to keep its people safe, and Williams' assertion that people must participate actively in the decision-making in political and economic matters. In other words, all of us, wherever we are, must become active agents in the change that we wish to see. That's a Mahatma Gandhi thing. Today, we are faced with a crime situation that has gotten out of control. Murders, home invasion, robberies, rapes, etc. We could go on. It's out of control. It's only our people acting collectively without thinking about your race or class, color or social rank, but acting as sovereign beings can solve this problem. As we do so, we must keep in mind that it's the people, not machines, or guns or elegant swagger that must be central to solving crime in the island. People are neither cockroaches. I don't know that. All right. People are neither cockroaches nor miscreants. I think that's the way some other people, they're miscreants and so on, as others have described them. But they are our brothers and our sisters who may have gone wrong, not only because their own fault, but because those of us who claim to possess superior wisdom have failed them. We have to assume our responsibility. We have failed them in many ways as a nation. We said, what is the role of each individual? If we say it's a collective problem, the question must be, what are our individual roles? We can't leave it to no government, just the police. So one of the first things we must talk about is what are our roles as individuals. And I'm saying from kindergarten to the oldest must know what is my role. Not if you see something, say something, all that nonsense. Tell me what your role is in the solution of the problem. And as my mother used to say, don't take a flambeau to look for something in the night which you could find in the day. We know what the problem is. You may not have petrol in your lamp. Do not take a flambeau to look for something at night which you can see during the day. We know what the problem is. The question is, how do we do it? Of course, protecting certain civil rights. But your point is really, we have to have a surgical approach to that problem with all manner of, and say it openly. Of course, it seems to me public trust in the TTPS is low. A lie? Oh, God, tell me something that make me feel like I say, yeah, Rasta. Public trust in the TTPS is low. The general public is afraid to provide public police information about crimes that take place in their communities and the criminals who commit them. That tells us a lot about the distrust they have for the TTPS. They do not feel safe in sharing complaints to the police, but out of fear that the confidential information that they give them is likely to get back to the persons about whom they complain, or is likely to testify against. It is well known that the hands of the criminal reaches out behind the prison bars to revenge those outside the prison bars who dare to cooperate with the police. And
you're losing the war against the criminal element. You're losing the war against the criminal element. But you hold the government accountable, and the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. The people of this country are quite correctly holding this government accountable to secure the country and to make you feel safe.
Question 9. Will the Prime Minister state whether he will consider the former Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith's request to meet with him as well as the opposition leader to discuss solutions to our raging crime crisis?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, as Chairman of the National Security Council of Trinidad and Tobago, I have very good reasons not to meet with Gary Griffith under any circumstances. As far as meeting with the opposition is concerned, I meet with them all the time in this chamber, in front of you, Madam Speaker, and they have obstructed every single attempt we had to fight crime in this country. This is not the beginning of the end. It is the end of the beginning of our action, but it is the beginning of the end of the Kamla Prasad regime. The beginning of the end of the Kamla Prasad regime. We will not cooperate with the government of Trinidad and Tobago on any matter. We will isolate them for as long as they're in office until they leave office.
Mr. Prime Minister, is it not abundantly clear to you that you have failed? Mr. Prime Minister, is it not abundantly clear to you that you have failed?
You call on the Prime Minister to do something about crime. I'm not in your bedroom. I'm not in your choice of men. You're losing the war against the criminal element. You're losing the war against the criminal element.
Mr. Prime Minister, would you not say that there are benefits to consultation with people who may know more than you about the crime situation in Trinidad?
Prime Minister.
The member might be surprised, but we do that all the time. You're losing the war against the criminal element. I could speak about one of them who over and over tells the country at press conferences every 2 or 3 days that they will support nothing that the government brings to the parliament because they have some kind of grouse. Take an oath of office to look after the people's interests without fear or favor, malice or ill will, but going out there and telling the media every Monday morning they will support nothing that the government brings here. And that is true. We will not cooperate with the government of Trinidad and Tobago on any matter. We will isolate them for as long as they're in office until they leave office. You're losing the war against the criminal element.
This is not the beginning of the end. It is the end of the beginning of our action, but it is the beginning of the end of the Kamla Prasad regime. The beginning of the end of the Kamla Prasad regime.
But you hold the government accountable, and the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. And when you have had enough of what we have done, you know exactly what to do. You know what to do.